both trying for a second career championship. And as an athlete in NASCAR or in any other sport, getting that second title is a major milestone, one that can elevate you from a champion to a legend and perhaps one day a Hall of Famer. So let's discuss that. KP, winning 2, does that mean Hall of Fame is a guarantee?
I think winning 1 means it's a guarantee, to be honest with you, because it's a huge, huge accomplishment. I will go back to Brad Keselowski. When he won the championship, instantly he started talking about number 2, and number 2 being a validation and a confirmation of what it was to be a champion and winning that first one. We only have Jimmy Johnson on the racetrack at this point in time who has multiple championships. Harvick, Kurt Busch, Kyle Busch, Joey Logano, Brad Keselowski, all those guys have that one single championship to their name. If we go to Miami with a Kevin Harvick, a Martin Truex, a Kyle Busch, and a Joey Logano, somebody's going to get that number 2. Somebody's going to rise above the rest. And that's why this is so exciting. As you watch this, somebody moves into that today, that rarefied air of having multiple championships.
And you know what the thing that gets me is when you look at just achieving 1 championship in NASCAR, look at the time it took Kevin Harvick to get 1. Look at the time it took Martin Truex Jr. to get 1. I mean, we're talking basically a decade's worth of work just to get 1. So 2, when you mention that word, Kyle, validation, they always say that. They're always saying, you know, 1, even though you really can't think of it as a fluke because of how long it takes to get there, 2 just validates that. It reinforces it. Yes, I won a championship. Now I've done it twice. I've figured out it wasn't just some magic that occurred in that 1 year. We've been able to replicate it a second time. That's what's so important about 2. And I think it's such a cool thing to be looking at the current standings right now and think 4 of these guys could be going for 2. That's a very interesting, discussion to be had of saying who's the first there. So it's definitely, there's a huge difference between 1 to 2. And especially, I just think the thing that gets me is just that amount of time period between just getting 1 and how much effort goes into getting there.
KP, something to note, too, because as we go into Miami, we always start to talk about, too, it's not just the driver. We look at the pit crew, the crew chief. When you see these 4 names that are at the top, the ones that would be going, if they're the 4 that are in, going for 2, they have something special with that crew chief. When you look at, Harvick and Rodney Childers, Martin Truex and Cole Pearn, Joey and Todd, who am I leaving out? Kyle and Adam Stevens. Yeah. It's almost like they've developed this sort of chemistry where it's not just a driver winning it. It is that pairing. And how important is that?
It's critical, I believe, because we can talk championship drivers and that old saying, you got to lose 1 to win 1. I think it's the same thing almost for a crew and a crew chief. We saw Joey go there with his pit crew and lose their shot on pit road during a pit stop. We've seen guys go there and lose their shot with a crew chief making a wrong call or a bad call that put them in a different place. So I think when we look at this, when we look at the teams that are above the line, when we look at those 4 championship drivers, there are also 4 championship crew chiefs. There are also 4 championship pit crews. There are also 4 championship organizations and teams. So they are the best that we have to offer. Denny Hamlin's right there with him. The one weakness that Denny has is he's not experienced a championship as a driver, and his crew chief has not been in this position. So that's a little bit of a weakness. At the same time, that's a wild card. And you can't count a wild card out when you go into this situation.
And I definitely agree with in terms of the crew chiefs and the crews. They put so much effort into this as well. This is one of the longest seasons in sports that culminates at Miami. So it's a tremendous amount of effort that goes into a season-long campaign to go for a championship. And that's really the thing here is that when you look at those crews and what they dedicate, what they push aside to be a part of this, it means just as much to them. That's that important. So I think another thing is this format. Think about this format here. It's basically taking a win to win a championship. So if you're able to do that twice, you're able to win a championship twice. I mean, that is just, think of the people that have tried their whole lives to win one race ever in this series. And yet these guys are having to win a race to win a championship. And if you do that twice, I just think it's an incredibly impressive feat. And that's why they put so much stock in going for 2. It's everyone believes if you're able to pull that off twice, you're able to find that magic. That is something truly special.
Yeah, because when we look at those 4, Kyle, right, they've all won the race to win the championship in this format. So, again, as a driver, what does it mean? What do you feel like it means to these guys to go for 2? Kyle, you mentioned Brad started talking about it immediately. So what is what gives them the hunger to do that?
Joey Logano, 2 in a row. I mean, we saw Jimmy Johnson do 5 in a row. Still the greatest record in this sport, I believe. I think it's the most underrated record. Joey Logano has an opportunity to go 2 in a row. You look at Kyle Busch, Kyle and Adam Stevens. This would be a championship for him in a full season. Remember, he had to overcome something that last time, overcome those leg injuries and come back. This would be the full season for Kyle Busch to win his second championship. When I go to Martin Truex, this is Martin Truex and Cole Pearn inside the Gibbs organization, not out freewheeling the Wild Wild West the way they won it the last time. This would be them working inside their cubicle and winning that championship. For Kevin Harvick, it would be win number 50 plus his second championship. Only Kyle Busch and Jimmy Johnson are the only 2 guys out there with plus 50 wins that are competing today. 50 wins, that 50-win club in NASCAR is a huge club and a huge accomplishment. And Kevin Harvick could kill 2 birds with 1 stone, a championship and a win at Homestead.
And he really could. I mean, let's not count him out at Phoenix. He could do it with 51 wins if he wins this weekend.
Fact.
No doubt. No doubt at all. You know, one other story about this I think that's interesting is when you look at Truex and Logano last year. You know, you think that Logano passed Martin Truex going for 2 in a row, and with that 78 team shutting down the end of the season, what an incredible story that would have been for that team to rise up from being, a team that barely made races to winning a championship and doing 2 in a row. And you look at the defeat there for Martin Truex Jr. That burned, and now they go to Joe Gibbs Racing. Now they're in a position where they could go deliver a championship to one of the biggest, most successful organizations in this sport's history. I mean, that's another mark for Cole Pearn and Martin Truex Jr. So there's just a lot at stake. So many of these guys want this for different reasons, as Kyle's pointing out. And I just think, each one of them puts so much weight on this. But at the end of the day, this is everything we work for. When you are a young kid dreaming of being a race car driver, you don't dream of just winning races. You dream of winning championships, being the best there is, and being able to go out there and do that on a consistent basis. Having multiple championships proves that.
Yeah, one driver going to make those dreams come true, possibly again for a second time if we're talking about those 4.
Hey Motorsports fans, thanks for watching. Make sure you hit subscribe before you go for all the latest news and highlights across motorsports.